sports fans, Larry Eater, Run Blog Run, your favorite program of the week, the one you wait for, Athletics Chat number 57. Hello, Stuart.
Hey.
Hey, Stuart, I'm in a hotel that in Springfield, Oregon, that my son said they could shoot an episode of Cops in. It's some rather colorful people. It was the only hotel under $250 in town. I got it for $79 US, which is what, about 50 quid, you know? And originally when I came up for the Twilight meet a month ago, I think I was paying 106, and then they went up to 430. So thank God American hotels don't gouge, you know? Can't wait to see what they do for the World Championships. But sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of venting off. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm just thinking 57, we could get Heinz to sponsor us, because they used to have 57 varieties, didn't they?
That's true. That's true. I didn't even think of that. You know, you've got that marketing mind, Stuart.
Yeah.
Stuart's in the intellectual capital of the world, as we tell everybody, Oxford, England. John Ridgen, the COO at World Athletics, begs to differ. He claims London is, but I say, you know, I fell asleep on a train, got out at Oxford, the kids got me back on to London. You know, no one else would have done that. Well, in Paris they do that too, but you know, but I fall asleep on trains everywhere, so that's what happens. So, Stuart, we've got a lot of stuff today. Should we? You want to begin?
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you about an 800-meter race in Poland.
Okay.
At the weekend. Patrick Dobek won it in a time of 1:43.73, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a world lead. But this race had got 6 people who ran a PR.
Oh my gosh.
And 2 of them were British. Jimmy Webb, 1:44.14. Elliot Giles, 1:44.20.
Wow.
Lewandowski did a season's best. He's the only one who didn't. And, there was an Australian, another Pole, and an Ethiopian. But, our trials are next week. Next weekend. And so there's Jimmy Webb and Elliot Giles, each running a PR. We've got Oliver Dustin, who until that weekend had the world lead of 1:43.82. We've got Max Bergen, who has got at least the European, if not the world under 20s record. We have got Cal Langford, who was, I think, 4th in a world championship. And we've got Daniel Rowden, who's in great form. And the sad thing is that of those 6, only 3 of them will get to the Olympics.
Wow.
Absolutely stacked. I mean, it's the kind of thing you have a lot in your trials, but this is quite new. I mean, I was talking to Jake Whiteman today, who said, I think I made a good decision not to do the 800, but just to go for the 1500.
I think he's smart. I think he's really, really smart. Should we talk about the Shelby Houlihan situation?
Yeah. I mean, you know more about this than I do, but 2 things about this disturbed me. Is her account seems to me to be very believable, and lots of people seem to believe it. And I was then surprised at the protest by quite a number of American athletes saying that she shouldn't be allowed to run in the trials. I mean, I was really quite surprised. Some well-known athletes taking a very, very strong stance against her. I mean, what do you make of all this?
Well, it's very frustrating. I know Jerry Schumacher, and I've known Jerry for close to 20 years. And Jerry is a man who stayed out of the limelight. When I've tried to talk to him at times, he says, no, interview my athletes. That he came out and spoke in Shelby's favor, that Shalane Houlihan did, tells me a lot. The idea of American food being contaminated, especially after Jerry and Lawson, who lost 2 years, and Ajay Wilson, who lost some time, strikes me as very plausible. The reaction from Seb Coe yesterday in a group interview surprised me a little bit. He very staunchly supported AIU, and while I celebrate what AIU does, I also know that I believe they go into it thinking that everybody's guilty, and they have an investigative group. And my family has members of police force in it. My grandpa was a captain. My uncle was a sergeant. And when you see the worst of things, you have a rather jaundiced view. The thing with Shelby is she got some food at a food stand. And she also keeps a diary of the food she eats and things like that. I don't understand for the life of me why an athlete would even eat at a food stand, knowing all the stuff that they're checked for whereabouts. There's been recent cases of problems with food, but she did, and that's not any type of blame on her. Rachel Berman from the Wall Street Journal said that she'd ordered a carne asada burrito, and she got possibly a pork burrito, which had pork offal, pork waste in it. Yes, there's waste in American meat products, and there's actually a certain amount of waste that's allowed per the FDA, which is really disheartening. Why I try to eat fish and as much veggies as possible. I think that Shelby and Jerry and her lawyer tried to do this all in good faith. I believe that trying to speed it up so she could get into the trials cost her. I do not think that perhaps she was able to do as good a defense, because essentially what Cass said and what Wada said was that her defense was not believable. Now, the U.S. jurisprudence is you are innocent until proven guilty. England shares the same, but Europe is guilty until proven innocent, thanks to that short little French guy, Napoleon. And AIU works in a European legal system. And I believe most of the time, as Americans think that Kenyans and Europeans, when they test positive, are dirty, I think most Europeans think that U.S. athletes are dirty. And it's a sad issue. Shelby, as was her constitutional right, USATF, who had to do what they did, which was say, yeah, she can compete as long as she's appealing, but there's really no appeal going on right now. She's going to have to go to the Swiss court, and all the Swiss court can do is they can't throw it out. They can say, hey, Cassie, you got to look at it. There's a problem with some evidence, but that could take 3 years. Essentially, Shelby Houlihan is totally screwed. And I'm frustrated because this continues to come up in the whole food issue. Do I understand the athletes writing a letter? They wrote a letter because they were concerned how USATF did the process. USATF did not explain that they had no choices. That's one, because they had to do a certain protocol. And so there was a lack of, there's some communication that wasn't done on both sides. Hence, people were, calling these guys dirty and this and this. And in a typical fashion, I thought we were going to get back to what happened in '92 with Butch Reynolds, which almost destroyed our Olympic trials in our sport. And so you just don't know where it's going. And while I think that I applaud World Athletics for getting drug testing out of their house, I still think there's politics in it. I believe in any human endeavor, there are errors. And I do not believe that if 9 out of 10 people you catch are guilty, that one that's not guilty, that's okay. That's totally BS. We would want, an athlete on this side of the pond or your side of the pond to be stopped from competing for an error. If the person cheated, then the person needs to serve.
Yeah.
But
Let me throw-
good. Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish.
My issue is that I still believe that when I look at somebody and they tell me they're not doing something, I have to trust them. Now, on the other side, I have a 3-hour interview from 1989 with Randy Barnes. That was the day I met Randy, and we were at the USA outdoor meet, and there was a dirt shot put ring, and my son was 3 at the time. He's now 35, and he was kicking dust up, and the 6'8" guy gets behind him and starts kicking dust up with him, and Adam's laughing. And of course you like a guy who can mellow out and hang out with your 3-year-old kid. And then he agreed to an interview with me. And the interview is, I mean, I'm digitizing. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever listened to. And I've listened to it a couple times since then. And, in 98, he got banned for life. And Ryan just broke his, Krauser just broke his record. So how do you deal with this rationalization situation that athletes have to do? And I don't know. So I think it's really complicated, but, I'm going to be quiet for a minute. You're going to chat.
I just want to throw 2 names at you. About 20 years ago, a British athlete, Diane Modal, failed a drugs test and was banned. And I think it'd be fair to say that just about everyone in the sport believed she was innocent.
Yeah.
So these things happen. And then, now, Aspel Kiprop, I don't know if he is guilty or not. Only he knows.
Yeah.
He says the only way you can have EPO is by injection, and he has not had an injection in the 3 years prior to his conviction. And he says, how can I prove that I haven't had an injection? I mean, how can I prove that negatively? And, there are situations, and again, I won't name any names, so neither of us are sued, but, I have watched people winning Olympic medals, and the person who came second refusing to speak to the media because her manager said she believes she's been beaten by a drugs chief. And I've even watched races myself where this has happened. And, there are people that the view of the people in the sport who know more than I do is that people are getting away with it. And we know that in some parts of the world, the number of tests which have been carried out in the last year is quite small.
I recall Kathy Butler. You remember her? She competed for Canada in the UK. Kathy went to Wisconsin. She's a coach now in Colorado, and 3,000, 5,000 meter runner. And I remember having a conversation with her. I believe it was in 02 or 03, where she had lost $30,000 or $40,000 because of a Russian athlete who was using EPO and got ranked higher than her. And it was the first time I was able to put together what these people were doing to athletes like Kathy, And $30,000 for her was more than likely, living in the Midwest U.S. at the time, that was food and a place to live for a year, So they're literally taking money out of people's mouths.
Oh, absolutely.
But how do you know? And that's the challenge.
Well, I mean, just to throw another name, Jenny Meadows. Estimated it's about 100,000 in her case. Of lost bonuses, sponsorship, etc., by medals that she got years later, but of course too late to get the sponsorship deals.
Well, I seem to recall the women's 1500 in London. That the first clean finish was actually a British runner in 5th or 6th place, if I'm correct. Everybody above her and 2 behind her have tested positive. And literally at the end of that race, I am texting with a sport official, and I said, "This is bullshit. Those top 2 are all dirty." And they go, "Oh yeah, we've been following them for a year." And I said, "Well, why the hell are you letting them race?" "Well, we got to catch them, And that's part of the issue, you know.
Yeah.
Um, So you know, we got past the Shelby thing. It's tragic as it is, and we've had 3 glorious days of track and field here. Would you like me to throw in some highlights? I'd like to hear what you think too.
Please, go on, tell me, give me some highlights.
The first day is Ryan Krauser, the shot put nerd. So when Ryan here's some of our behind the scenes things. When Ryan got to try out the ring, he and Joe Kovacs thought on Thursday it was rather slow. And rings can be fine tuned, and shot put rings can. And the next morning, in qualifying, he was commenting on how fast it was. And he literally changed shoes for 2 reasons. One, in case he set a world record, he didn't want the shoes he really liked taken from him, because when you set a world record, they take them. And in his second throw, he pops out a 22.92, biggest throw of the year, 75 feet, I think 1.5 inches. And so he's got a new meet record. And then, you know, he comes back in the evening, and on his fourth throw, he goes 23.37, farther than Ulf Timmerman and Randy Barnes. Ulf had gone 23.06. Randy Barnes, 32 years ago, had gone 23.12. So the first man over 76 feet was Ryan. And Ryan was ecstatic. You know, I got 8 questions with him, and we had to do it this way. We were doing it remotely, Stuart, but we weren't talking to them. I raised my hand, and then I had to write the questions, and I got 7 in a row with him. There were some great questions in there. But I asked him, you know, because he always breaks up his throws. He said the back part of his throw, when you saw him at the end of the ring, he said that was the best part of his throw. And he said at each throw, he was doing something, you know, really well. He thinks he can get it over 77 feet. He's not going to compete. He may do one more competition for Tokyo, but he's not going to go to Europe right now, I think, unless someone offers him and Paul Doyle, his manager, insane money. But yeah, he's a blast. And then the men's 10,000, they went out at 28 pace, and Woody Kincaid dropped a 53.4 on his teammate Grant Fisher. They're both with Bowerman Track Club. So they went 1-2. But in third was Joe Klecker. Joe's parents are Barney and Janice. Barney was the 50K world record holder and the 50-mile American record holder. Janice was a very prominent runner, made the 92 Olympic team. And I believe they have 7 kids. And I think Joe's like one of the middle kids. But, you know, what was really interesting, it's another support for the club training program. On Athletics does a running club. They started it in May of 2020. We've interviewed their coach, Dathan Ritzenhein, and, you know, all 8 of the athletes. And Joe's the first one from the on group to make an Olympic team. And it was very emotional, a lot of fun, great race to watch. I encourage people to check it out. That was day 1. On day 2, we had 2 finals, and it was Valerie Allman in the discus going 69.72. I cannot wait to see her and Sandra Perkovic and Yami Perez go at it in Tokyo, man. That's going to be awesome. And I think we should have a cooking contest between Valerie and Sandra.
Absolutely.
You know, because, you know, Sandra is an awesome chef. She makes great pasta. So let's see if Valerie can do that too, because that would be a kick. But
I mean,
Valerie, good.
We could use this as a tiebreaker. You know, instead of having the last round they do the Diamond League, say, okay, the winner is the person who makes the best pasta.
I think so, because I hate that last round thing in the Diamond League. It is absolutely, I applaud people for trying new things, but everybody that I talk to, I mean, in the stuff on the tirades on social media, come on, World Athletics, let's just get rid of it. You know, not good. But I mean, no, the thing that was fun.
What Thomas Walsh said, actually, I would rather have the biggest throw than win.
Yeah, I don't. It's just totally bizarre. It's that almost that American thing about, well, you may not win, but we all did well. You know what? Kids know it's BS. I knew when there was a guy running a 5-minute mile and I was running a 6:20, I had to train him a little bit more to, get down to that 5-minute mile. That's just life.
Yeah.
And those are life lessons you need. My last comment on Valerie is just that the crowd loved her. I mean, she was 10 meters ahead of her competition, and she's a very joyful thrower. She has a lot of fun. She gave her coach Zebulon Zion, what a name. The guy sounds like he's a fur trapper with, Jeremiah Johnson. But, he's helped her figure her stuff out, and she's a lot of fun. That was day 2. Day 3, we had the men and women's 400s, we had the 100 hurdles, and then we had the men's 100. The men's, the women's 400, Quinera Hayes won. She is coming back from she's got a 2-year-old, just interviewed her. She's a delight. But I'll tell you, Allison Felix pulled it off, and it was calculated.
Absolutely.
That woman was in 6th place, and she ran that last 100 like she was doing 100 meters. And she just nipped 3rd place, took 2nd. Kendall Ellis, who everybody thought was going to do it, finished 4th. So it's that was exciting. And then the men's 400, Michael Norman had a battle. I mean, him and Michael Cherry duked it out, and Norman ran 44:07. Cherry ran 44:35 as PB, and then there was 7 of the 8 were under 45 seconds. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And then we come to the women's 100-meter hurdles, which you and I have an affection for Kenny Harrison, and in 16 she had a rough time. She finished 4th. This time she did great, 12:47. And then Brianna Rollins, who's under appeal right now. I'm not even sure if she's going to be on the team. She was in 2nd. Christina Clemens in 3rd. Gabby Cunningham in 4th. Gabby could end up making the team. So
but I mean, leaving the politics out of it. I mean, for Brianna to run the times that she did, her first race of the season is phenomenal. And Christina Clemens, great to see her making an Olympic team. I mean, she was in London 2017 in the World Championship. She's been quite dominant indoors, but just lovely to see her making an Olympic team. And did you see her on Twitter wearing Doritos earrings?
No, I'll have to check that out. That's pretty funny.
And because Stutzman John responded to this by saying he's going to the British trials with a donut on his head to see whether he can get sponsored by a donut company. If Christina can get away with having Doritos and trying to get a sponsorship that way.
No, I think it's the final event on day 3 was the men's 100 meters, and boy, was that entertaining. Our friend Trayvon Bromell ran 9.80. He looked great. I mean, he ran his race. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Raina Ryder, his coach, the Tumblebee Track Club, his family, his sponsor, his faith, I think he's a tremendously faith-inspired athlete, and he gives credit where credit is due, and I respect that about him. In 2nd, that was Ronnie Baker. Has had a couple tough years, and Ronnie ran really well, a PB 985, and in 3rd, Fred Curley, the guy who moved from the 400 down to the 100 and the 200. And
I mean, everyone said he couldn't possibly be fast enough at the 100 as a 400 runner, and my goodness me, he's a egg on face everywhere.
Yeah, and in 7th place was Noah Lyles. Noah put a note up today that he ran his heart out. It just wasn't to be. But he said his comment was the 200 will be disgusting, and I think in his parlance that means it's going to be fast. So that's good for him. But what I was sad to see, and Justin Gatlin finished last, and Justin, I think he pulled up a bit. I haven't been able to do the research on it yet. I'm going to spend some time and try to get a little time with Justin. The one I forgot to talk about was our friend LaShawn Merritt. LaShawn went out in the semis, and he's the 2008 World or Olympic champion. On Saturday night, I saw LaShawn walking around the hotel, and he recognized me. I got to chat with him in 16 and in 17, and he said, "Hey, look," he goes, "I know what to do. I know what to run that last 100." And I said, "But my body is just not listening, to my brain."
Yeah.
And and it was very poignant to me and sad. He knew that he had to bust his butt, but he didn't know if that was going to be enough. And that's part of the sadness and the joy of an Olympic trials in our sport too. If you're not there and ready on the day, no matter who you are, party's over. And LaShawn will always be someone I respect. I'd love to see him get under 45, but the issue is right now, if you can't run 44.6 or so, good luck. I mean, Vernon Norwood was 6th place, and I think he'll make the relay pool. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. But so far, the trials have been good. We've got 3 hours this afternoon, and some women's 1500, men's 800. Those will be two of the highlights. The triple jump, and and the one that we forgot about was Vashti Cunningham last night. Vashti won the high jump, a modest jump, 196, but the other two athletes were at 193. So a pretty good squad going. I think Vashti has outside shot for a medal, but it's tough. I mean, European jumpers right now are fabulous, so we'll have to see.
Just a couple of things to add to that. I mean, the triple jump, as you say, is going to happen, but so far nobody has got to 17 meters in the qualifying.
Yeah.
Strange.
Well, it's sad because I think that Will Clay needs Christian to battle with him. I mean, they're good for each other. They're great for the sport. And I hope Will can put it together.
Now
Sam Kendrick tonight too in the pole.
You haven't said anything about the women's 100, which was again quite fascinating. With first Shelley Ann runs 10:63, then Blessing Okabari runs 10:64. Questions about the wind, I think. But even so, even if it's not legal, it's a fantastically fast time. And then Sha'Carri Richardson, 10:86 in the final, but 10:64 in the semi. So we could have ourselves one interesting race in Tokyo.
Oh, I concur. I think Sha'Carri, which it took me 25 times to try to pronounce her name. Sha'Carri is a real talent. The crowd loves her. She stopped for every selfie photo. She went up and gave her grandma a big hug. Her grandmother raised her. And she is, as you have shown in your interviews, that she holds her own with the British media. And that brings up a point. So second place was Javier Oliver. Third place was Tana Daniels. So a very strong team. But a writer named Alan Abrahamson is, for Three Wire Sports, has done 2 pieces over here about racism in sports. And he went after some of the British media very hard, saying that their treatment of Sha'Carri is racist, and also questioned some of the other treatments of some of the athletes, and there's a lot of people that are appreciating his writing, and and he asked Seb Coe yesterday, "Is there a time of reckoning with the sport?" And Seb talked about the issues of racism in Great Britain as he was growing up, and how his father and some friends kicked a group of guys out of a stadium who were saying racial epithets at some of the Black British athletes. This was in the early 70s. And in a lot of ways, when I go to the UK, I think they're much more open than we are in the US. But racism is a huge issue in the US. In certain parts of the country, it's even worse. In the Midwest and upper Midwest, it's terrible. And there's little codes on how stuff's done. The one thing is a track and field for most white kids in the U.S. is one of the first times they meet Black kids and Latino kids. And the best thing that can happen to them is to be on a relay team or run with kids in another ethnic group. They go, hey, you know what? These kids breathe and talk and eat like me, you know? And it's just, Alan brought up something where he quoted a Dina Asher-Smith article that you had done, where Dina talked about racism in the UK and being thought of being a worker when she went to a couple places and being told, well, you can't afford those things. I recall with Dan O'Brien and Dave Johnson. Now, Dan is a mixed race athlete. I think his father was Kenyan, and I think that his mother is Finnish. You know, he's from this really colorful family with kids with different ethnic groups and stuff. But he and Dave were always asked questions about, were they parts of gangs? Were they rough kids and stuff? And they just got to the point where they would, you know, just deal with it because it's the only story that some people would pick up on. And that was sad. You know? And it's like, I remember Alan Johnson one time taking me aside in 1995. And I said, you know, we were on a plane together. And I said, hey, am I writing stuff the right way? And he goes, Larry, he goes, don't write about it. Don't ask us all about being in gangs and stuff. He goes, a lot of Black athletes are middle-class families and stuff like that. He goes, it's no different than white kids. And, you know, and I took it and it was for the instruction that it was. Alan was very straightforward, and I really liked that. But it's true. And so you question yourself. But I encourage people to go to Three Wire Sports and read Alan's 2 columns. They're worth reflection. And now we've got looking ahead to the GB trials, my friend. You got those coming up this weekend.
Yeah. And I was just, there's something going to happen at this. I'll try and explain to you what it is. It's something called a mixed zone, where people can talk to each other, not to a screen, but a journalist and an athlete can be in the same space and talk to each other.
Is that going to happen in England?
It's going to happen, I believe, this weekend. They did it at the 10,000, and it was deemed to be successful, so that I believe they're going to try it again. So that's really quite exciting.
Yeah, you know what they're doing here is we don't even get to talk to them over a screen. We we text the questions, and then they read the questions. You know, Larry Eater from RunBlogRun says, you know, this, and then the athletes answer. And, you know, I participated in 2 or 3 with Woody Kincaid and Grant Fisher and Ryan Krauser. But I haven't been since then because, quite frankly, there's just way too much going on. But I'm very jealous that you've got real live people to talk to in a mix zone.
Well, I'll just tell you more next week. Now, there's one interesting story running around that, as you know, a 10,000 meter race has suddenly appeared in our trials. coincidentally with Mr. or Sir Mo Farah chasing an Olympic qualifying time. And Liz McColgan commented on social media, will they do the same for the long jump if there's a long jumper who doesn't have the qualifying standard?
Well, of course they won't. And look, Liz McColgan's a lot of fun. She's 1991 world champion. Her daughter Eilish is the British trials champion at 10, and trying to get the family record. Got what, about 11 seconds to go. Of course, British athletics did this. The biggest money ticket seller for them is Mr. Farah, and if they can get him in, I think 27-28 is going to be tough for him under any circumstances. I don't say anything bad about him, but look at Galen Rupp ran the 10,000 here. And 2 weeks ago, Galen ran a 28 minute 37 seconds. Just missed the U.S. Olympic trial standard. Here, he was in it until the last lap. In fact, he led for laps 4, 3, and 2, and he ran 27:59. He would have had to run a 27, about a 57 to make the team. So he improved a bit. His racing did. He raced more confidently. I don't know if it's an end of an era with Galen and with Mo, but it could be. And so it's something that we need to consider. We need to show respect. And all these athletes, as you and I note a lot of times, make everything look so darn easy. And the truth is, it's not. It's just isn't.
Today, Jake Whiteman was asked, do you think it's unfair that they're doing this for Mo? And Jake just said, look, think of what he has achieved over his lifetime. Who can object to him getting a little bit of special treatment?
Yeah, I mean, that was just, it's that silliness. But, it's our friends sometimes in different media groups have different opinions than we do, and that's just how we have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Fred, you're going to be busy this week.
Yeah. Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, well, I'm going to be at the trials in the U.S. We've got a session tonight, then we have a 2-day break, and then we have sessions on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And because the U.S. trials try to perfectly mimic the Olympics, and you're going to the Olympics, which we're quite excited about, and we're hoping to make sure you're in the stadium every night. So we'll keep our fingers crossed there. But so next week with our episode 58, we're going to learn about the British trials.
I mean, just a quick comment on Tokyo. There ought to be space for me in the athletic stadium, given that they've decided that there are only going to be 10,000 spectators.
Yeah, I think there might be a wee bit of space there for you. I hope, and perhaps a beverage, some tea, some coffee, or, a Sapporo. But, and I don't know what your feelings are about, or a glass of nice wine, after you finish riding in the evening, But we shall see what new things transpire, my friend. And so ends Athletics Chat 57 with Stuart Weir in the intellectual capital of the world. Stuart, I had a lot of caffeine today. I'm sorry for interrupting you a few times. My apologies. But we always have a great time. And thanks to Mike Deering, the production manager, who somehow tries to manage both of us. And then today I've had the pleasure of my son visiting me for Father's Day. Adam's here, and he's listening and trying not to get me to laugh, So I'm trying to behave, Stuart, but it's a 12-step program, and I'm at the first step. So stay safe, my friend. This is Larry Eater with RunBlogRun with Stuart Weir, Athletics Chat number 57. Was it 57? Yes, 57.
57.
57. Next week will be 58. Okay. Stay safe. Talk to you soon. Hey, sports fans, Larry Eater on Blog Run. This is episode 57, and this is the epilogue athletics chat. Stuart and I had a lively conversation today. I had 32 ounces of Starbucks iced Americano and a Good and Gather bag of sea salt roasted pistachio kernels. So I'm, powered to the max. So what do we talk about? Shelby Houlihan situation. Essentially, Shelby was Houlihan, American record holder of the 1,500 and 5,000, was told in January that she tested positive for nandrolone. Doing a dietary kind of a map of what she'd eaten in the week in December, after the test was done, she determined that she had had a burrito at a food stand in Eugene, Oregon. She had ordered a carne asada burrito, but she believed that she was given a pork burrito. According to WADA standards, pork offal, that means waste. Yes, there's waste product in American meat. Really wants you to think about your diet better. And it contains nandrolone. But in the process of defending herself, and they speeded everything up, expedited it so they could, perhaps she could compete in the trials. The organizations CAS and WADA said that they didn't really believe that she had come to the position to show that there was any doubt in what had happened. And so the Monday before last, Jerry Schumacher, her coach, Shalane Flanagan, her coach, her lawyer, Mr. Green, and Shelby did a press conference, a virtual press conference to some media. I did not get to see it. I did not participate in it, and talked about the situation. None of us had heard about it really before. We knew something was up because Shelby wasn't around. What happened this week was with the band and USATF, and this wasn't something Max Siegel did. What happened was there's protocols in place, and because they thought that she had an appeal left, they put her in the 1,500 and the 5,000. There was athlete outrage. A group of athletes felt that because she had been banned, and this is true according to World Athletics rules, they could be compromised in competition. The World Athletics could say, USATF, you guys can't, you're not allowed to have the Olympic trials, or your athletes are not allowed to go to the Olympics. The AIU organization, Athletics Integrity Unit, sent a note to USATF and the USOC. On Thursday night of this last week, USOPC said that in conjunction with USATF, they have withdrawn Shelby's ability to compete in the 1,500. She wasn't in the 5,000. What does this mean? Well, it takes some of the controversy out of the trials. Do I think Shelby's guilty? No, I don't. After having seen the Jarian Lawson fiasco in Aji Wilson, I think AIU needs to reconsider how they're approaching this, because this is going to hurt them. If these things continue to come up about food products and there are appeals that are won and lost, the public is going to question their effectiveness. And that's what's happening now. Unfortunately, though, in Europe, people believe that the Americans are guilty, and they don't understand why Shelby's responding. She should have taken her 4-year ban. In the U.S., most people think that Shelby is not guilty, and this is a crock of absolute horse dung. I tend to be in between. I don't think Shelby did something that knowingly. I don't think that Jerry Schumacher or Shalane Flanagan would as well. I'd be surprised, but I've been surprised before. But I also think that the AIU acts remarkably like a U.S. Police Investigative Internal Unit, where they believe everybody's guilty from the very beginning. It's a rather jaundiced view, and it's a poor view to approach. Now, when you have so many fine investigators, you can find good stuff, but I think you also have to keep an open mind. And that's what I don't see happening here. And the approach has been rather dictatorial. That's a good way to put it. Okay, so that's one. Extraordinary 800 in Poland. I will let you listen to that, but two Brits got big PBs. A lot of kids under 144. Reflections on the U.S. trials. You can read those on RunBlogRun. You can hear my diatribe in the Athletics Chat 57. And looking ahead to the GB trials, they're next weekend. Our friend Stuart's going to be there, and he's also going to be in Japan as well. So this is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. If you like RunBlogRun, like us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you love us, subscribe on our YouTube channel. We have 2,500 YouTube videos. We have just under 370 videos from 2020 that are also up there as well. Enjoy them. Trade them with your friends. The more eyeballs we get, the better advertising support we can receive as well. So stay safe. Thank you to Mike Deering for being the production manager of Athletics Chat 57. He tries to keep me under control without a taser, and I appreciate that. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for watching our videos.